The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the guests or hosts, and not necessarily those of the advertisers, networks, platforms, or stations. Warning that the content of the show may not be suitable for all audiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. The show does not intend to provide medical, legal, or financial advice, and viewers or listeners should consult with a professional.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio. We are broadcasting live from 300 feet deep in an abandoned nuclear missile silo somewhere undisclosed in the post-apocalyptic wastelands of the Dakota Territories. And as always, I am joined by the paranormal crime-fighting duo Daisy and the Sundance Kid, or working security in the silo again this evening. And high above us, roaming around, I kid you not, are gray alien vampires. We spotted them today. Apparently, they abducted the wrong person on the planet, some guy named Vlad. Now, apparently, the vampire virus is alive and well in the gray alien population, and they are sucking everything dry within a 20 square mile radius. It is pure post-apocalyptic mayhem. And as always, there's a $10 cover charge and a 2-drink minimum. Please be kind to your waitress this evening. And this has been one of those crazy weeks. They've all been crazy lately. What can I say? It's the summer of emergence. And we'll be talking about that tonight. Kind of have a round table of topics to discuss this evening, and we're just going to kind of jump from topic to topic. This is the time of year, a good time of year, really to kind of have an annual slacker show where we're going to kind of freeform discuss a lot of different topics and kind of jump from topic to topic and kind of go back and reiterate some things that were covered in some past episodes, and we'll just see where the evening takes us as far as our discussion goes. We're going to talk about everything from the difference. What is the difference between a skinwalker, a shapeshifter, a werewolf, and a dogman? I had that very important question posed to me on YouTube this week, and I thought that would be something good to cover. A lot of people are unfamiliar with what the differences are, but there are distinct differences between those four things. And like I said, we kind of have an expanded cryptid corner this evening, which will be fun. An interesting report I came across the last few days. I've been studying this report, kind of linking 4 different cryptids and the idea that they're following an electromagnetic grid. Interesting. It's kind of a new angle on some cryptid animals that everyone is familiar with. And we've got some interesting paranormal in the news, as always. News Nation is running an article about Senator Rounds will renew push for UAP disclosure legislation. So there again is another volley in the ongoing war for disclosure. There are pro forces and there are dark forces for control and for ultimate disclosure, hopefully, of the alien presence on this planet. And, you know, I've discussed previously, and it's something to reiterate, to really brace yourselves for ontological shock. And that's kind of, you know, where the headlines are meeting cyber prophecy and the idea that they've had, quite 80 years now to really kind of warm the public up to the idea of non-human intelligences flying exotic craft around and doing who knows what for what ends. And they've chosen not to do that. And now the universe is forcing their hand. And it's doing so in a number of different ways. And really all that's left to them, because they've chosen to cover it up this long, because they're not going to just come right out. This is going to be a fight to the very end, it looks like. But really the only option left to them and to the public is catastrophic disclosure, which means disclosure comes all at once without any warning whatsoever to, ma and pop out there in normie land, that, and that's not to look down on people that aren't versed in the paranormal subjects, but we have to always keep in mind that there are millions upon millions upon millions of people that never entertain a single notion about the paranormal world, and all of a sudden they're going to be faced with a reality change, the likes of which no human has ever seen before. And how are they going to deal with that reality change is a big question, and that is ontological shock, the idea that everything that you thought was true and believed was true gets wiped out in a single moment. And what do you do at that stage in time? And we're quickly approaching here in the so-called summer of emergence, as the Webbot puts it, into a period of time when, over the past few months, we've had a lot of different stress points happen around the world. So, and you can look at a stress point like a major story of some kind that hits the headlines and the mainstream news media, etc. It's at that interesting stage that you're going to begin to see story after story coming out over the course of July, August, into the fall. Things begin to transition a little bit. The Webbot kind of predicts a little bit of a lull in August, but July is going to be a period of time where really you can take all of the stress points we've had since May, double that, and then turn that up 50%, and you'll come close to what the Webbot predicts is going to happen over a very hot July. So you have that to look forward to, if nothing else. Kick back in the air conditioning, turn on the fan, whatever you have, and turn the mainstream news on. There's a bunch of misinformation and false information. That's part of watching mainstream media, is to see what it is they're up to. But at the same time, what you're going to see is the story after story coming out that's going to send shockwaves through normie land, I like to call it, and each one of those shockwaves is going to be a major stressful event for people. So, you're going to have a period of time when, presumably normal people, people that even that act and are, really for all intents and purposes, not crazy, can and will start acting out in crazy ways when some of this information begins to become shown to them in a way that they can no longer deny or put aside or pretend like it isn't happening. And so because of that, the Webbot has predicted, there's going to be some chaos happen. And with that, you can presume logically that a lot of chaos is going to happen where there are people, and where there are people are high population areas. So, it's wise, if you can, over the next month or 2 or 3, to kind of steer clear of people. And this is part of tonight's cyber prophecy. I thought we would cover the necessary steps one really kind of needs to take in the face of all of these changes that are coming to sort of weather the storm, if you will. So, and what do I mean by weather the storm? Well, this isn't a time when there's going to be like a pandemic or an asteroid, hit the Earth, or World War III exactly break out. There could be plenty of big wars taking place, as there are, but the Webbot does not see like a planetary human-on-human war taking place. It's not like that. What the changes that are coming, these huge waves of changes that are coming, are going to be waves that alter humanity's perception of reality, of things like time specifically, are going to become completely different and altered. It predicts a period of time when people become decoupled from geographic notions of time. And by that I mean, we live on a cycle of 24-hour days, 7-day weeks. 5 of those days are heavy labor days, etc. That system's been in place for a really long time. Well, when this wave of change comes, and it's coming very soon, people are going to begin to behave and operate in a different way. That old way of perceiving and sort of plotting out life according to how we perceive time is going to really drastically change, because our idea and perception of time is going to really go out the window, along with our accepted, really worldwide accepted version of physics. Also ends up going out the window, because when a new technology is introduced, which is non-human in origin and which comes from outside of what is now a closed system, and defies all of that math that you thought you knew, all of those physics that you thought you knew, then you have to rewrite physics from scratch, because it's operating by a higher physics. In other words, they're just not seeing enough of the puzzle pieces to be able to tell that the physics they've been pursuing actually lead to a dead-end alleyway. It doesn't go anywhere. There's a higher form of physics, apparently, that these craft and these non-human intelligences are able to take advantage of, and that becomes eventually known to the populace. And a lot of this back-engineered technology is said to, or is being predicted by the Webbot to actually come into normal world populations within the next few years. It's interesting because it does have the so-called end of days prediction, but if you've noticed around the internet, there's a lot of talk about 2027 and this idea that there's something that's going to happen on 2027. What that happening is a matter of a lot of speculation online. I know Cliff High was able to trace that traffic back to its origin. It was discovered that there were a number of military agencies from various countries around the world who were originating that information online. For what purpose, we don't know. Very interesting. But that's where that originates, back to military. Various militaries around the world have people who are literally leaking online in various venues and chat boards, what have you, that 2027 is the end of the world, and that's why all of the powerful elites of the planet are, building underground bunkers. And, it was reported not too long ago that people like, Mark Zuckerberg has a huge underground bunker in Hawaii now. And there's plenty of these people that do. Plenty of these elite billionaire type people that have these underground bunkers. In fact, in the Dakota territories here, I can tell you that there is a complex of old missile silos that some sort of investment firm has purchased and has renovated all of those silos and then sold them out to millionaires all over the country. So that's interesting as well. But the Webbot is saying that, it's not like a planetary catastrophe. It's not like a pandemic. This isn't going to be a bug out type situation. This is a very much hunker down and weather the storm type situation. And there's a lot of good suggestions about that, about really what to do over the next few months, and that is to sort of begin to turn your home, wherever that may be, into its own little oasis. Whatever you can do to make your home a retreat from the rest of the world, where you'll be able to sort of have personal, alone, quiet space and time and little as contact as possible with other human beings for the next few months. That would be extremely advisable. Creating a Zen garden, creating a Zen room, creating areas where you can sort of unplug, if you will, from the crazy chaos that will be ensuing. Everything will be fine. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a period of time when you're going to have to hoard food or things like that, but you're going to have a period of time when all of this sort of let's call it alien shock overwhelms the public. I like to make things simple like that. It freaks the normies out completely. They really have a tough time with it. And they start acting out because of that. That's when people become dangerous, and that's kind of the dangerous period we're approaching. That's why you want to kind of steer clear of people that are going to have their normal worlds kind of smashed into tiny little pieces, because they can act out in really unpredictable ways. And the Webbot says to be wary of that. It's a period of time when you're going to have that kind of ontological shock take place in our society, along with a complete upending of the economy. So not only do you have the stresses coming down of all of belief systems being obliterated, right, within our society, but you have the stress of a major economic upheaval is the best word, as the sort of old debt system begins to get crushed under the wheels of what will become a new monetary system. And this new monetary system will be based on real money. Imagine that. It won't be treasury notes that are a promissory note to pay you $1 of some kind if you ever present the note. No, it's not like that. It's going to be something more like a constitutional dollar based on gold, silver, minerals, actual assets like that. And that is a radical change. And the only way that change takes place is by really a wiping out of global debt, if you can imagine that. So, there are things being predicted as big as when this alien tech begins to make its way out into the public, as it will, because the money for all the secrecy has now been eliminated from the equation. So these people don't have money to keep it a secret anymore. All of that money is really dried up, and now they're left scrambling. And so that stuff is going to float to the surface, and along with that is some 0 point energy like devices, apparently, and the indications that that really the powers that be aren't going to want to upset the apple cart any more than it already is, and so they begin to sort of clandestinely deploy this 0 point energy into our power grids. That's really kind of how this looks like it plays out. Eventually, there are people that end up, working with and on those type of 0 point generators who end up working on things like in their garages and things like that, and come up with all kinds of free or extremely cheap energy devices. And that begins what is predicted to be or described to be the emergence of sci-fi world. And sci-fi world should happen within our lifetimes. This is going to be an exciting time, but it'll be a time when many, many secrets are revealed. We have to remember that we are in the Kali Yuga. This is the age of Aquarius, and, true to form in the age of Aquarius, all secrets from the previous age become revealed. Well, we have to remember that secrets over time build up lots of tension. And when a secret gets revealed, it's very much like setting off an earthquake within society. So imagine a time period coming up here very shortly when many big secrets get revealed. These cause big earthquakes within our society at a time that ontological shock is taking place, at a time when economic upheaval is taking place. All of this coincides really literally starting in July. Over the next 4 to 5, 6 months, it plays out like that. So you're in for big changes. Big changes are coming. And we have to remember that the true nature of the universe, let's call it that. I mean, it is the ontology of the universe, but the true nature of the universe is a self-revealing mechanism. In other words, if you're a life form somewhere in the universe, it will make its true nature known to you or to your species. And, it works in both directions, for good and for negative. But, we have to remember it's the supreme consciousness of the universe which put us into a position to acquire alien technology to begin with. We have to remember that there are all kinds and forms of slavery on this planet, and there are indications that humans could be a different kind of enslaved race from non-human intelligences. But the universe often works in ways that surprises the enslavers and not those who are enslaved. In other words, those who are enslaved often rise up to become the masters of those who enslaved them. And it's one of those things where it could be shaping up. There are every indication from cyber prophecy coming out of Webbot, Vedic astrology, remote viewing, and the human resonance indicator that that humanity still steams forward. We do get through this difficult period of time, and on the other side is sort of this big explosion of human potential. We have to remember that in the ascending part of the Kali Yuga that we find ourselves in right now, we are being bombarded from cosmic center from the center of our galaxy. Our planet is receiving amazingly energetic rays of energy, and it's those rays of energy that interact with biology on this planet, including humans, and humans begin to sort of bloom again like they did in the last golden age, and you'll begin to see people take on heightened psychic abilities. You'll be able to see them take on heightened, increased intelligence levels, longer lifespans, higher creativity. It runs the spectrum. Those are all the good things that come with this part of the periodic cycle that we are in on this planet. And when we come back, we'll continue meandering through the Twilight Zone. Stay with us.
I'm Sarah, and this is my story.
I'm Ellen, and this is my story.
One night, I was at a bar. I was having fun with my friends.
I
had one too many drinks.
I
got behind the wheel to go home.
I got a cab to go home.
All of a sudden, from out of nowhere, a squirrel ran across the road.
And all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, a squirrel ran across the road.
It happened so quickly, I barely had time to react.
It happened so quickly, the cabbie barely had time to react.
I swerved.
The cab swerved.
I can't believe it. I hit a guy.
I cannot believe it. The cabbie just missed a guy.
I wish I took a cab.
Thank goodness I took a cab.
You have the choice to save a life. Don't drive buzzed. It's a decision you'll never regret. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
Fly portals, slip through, time slip wide, slip through live radio, mystical airwaves, mystical. In the woods, shadows creep, monsters leave. In the woods, strange voices. Shadows creep in the woods, monsters leap. In the woods, bright noises. Mystical. Airwave mystical. Mystical. UFO. Alien overlord. From ancient times to modern days, legends of creatures in sudden disarray. Hear them speak through frequencies. Alien connections. Break it out, truth untold. Do it in cosmic mystery. Dark woods where legends breathe. Paranormal whispers, can you believe? Bigfoot strikes through the veils. Dogman howls in the midnight tale. From the static, revelations pour. Portals open, dimensions roar. starry skies, echoes of the truth, no disguise. Cryptic shadows creeping near, through the static, voices clear. Dark woods where legends breathe, paranormal whispers, can you believe? It's the Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio. Whoa. Wednesday nights, enjoy the show. It's how we spend our Wednesday nights. Yay, yay. It's crank that dial and dim the show. It's how we spend our Wednesday.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. I'm your host, Jack Carey, your tour guide to the Twilight Zone, and tonight we were discussing some paranormal news and mainly some cyber prophecy. We're sort of going back over some topics that we've covered over the past few weeks because this is a perfect really time during the summer to do that and to sort of take stock of where we're at in the cyber prophecies. Kind of reiterate some things that would be wise to do, given that, you know, there's been some highly accurate predictions in the past put out by the WebBot algorithms. And so instead of, you know, sort of fearing the future, I advise surfing the waves as they come. And some of those things that will help you to do that, for instance, you know, it has mentioned time and again that we're going to have an economic turmoil period that's going to be truly altering to our society. And at the same time, it's been saying that this time period would see a temporal marker. A temporal marker is an event that occurs that lets you know when a bigger event is about to take place. And one of those temporal markers to this economic upheaval that's said to sweep through across the planet really is that the dark globalist cabal of banking power on this planet is losing its grip over the control of silver. I know that sounds strange because what does silver have to do with paranormal prophecies? But to make a long story short, these guys that have been in this pursuit of a global power structure for eons and have worked to those ends and have done really nefarious things are the same people that have control of the back-engineered alien technology, and they're the same people that control the baking industry. And, you know, we're approaching a point when they're going to lose control completely of all of that. And one of the crazy things is that this group of powerful people have been able to manipulate silver prices in the silver market going on 7 decades, 8 decades, maybe longer than that. Cliff High would argue it goes all the way back to the silver wars in China, between Britain and China. And that was a period of time when China literally controlled all of the goods going, or Britain controlled all of the goods going into China and forced all of the Chinese people to pay for them in silver. And by doing so, extracted the wealth of the country, you know, out of China. And it was this ill-gained silver that became the backing for a lot of banking industries, a lot of big banks and central banks eventually, etc., and a lot of powerful, wealthy, elite European families that are associated with the banking industries learned that they could readily manipulate the price of silver, and by doing so, they could leverage it many hundreds and hundreds of times by writing what are called derivative contracts. This allows them unbelievable amounts of leverage in the many trillions of dollars to be able to do all of the stuff that they do. Well, a temporal marker has been coming in from the webbot that says they lose control over the silver manipulation. It looks like that temporal marker has been tripped. We say that because the price of silver went through it's like 7 or 8 decade resistance line just a week or two ago, and it went through that resistance line literally like it wasn't even there. Now you're having all kinds of people on financial channels, etc., talking about how silver is invaluable to all of the high technology that is going to be necessary for artificial intelligence. And you're seeing really these guys get pressure from all ends. And at some point that spring pops and the price of silver goes sky high. It is predicted to become unobtainium. If you've ever heard that word, that means so rare, so valuable that you can't even obtain it anymore. So as part of a survival kit, it would be my recommendation to obtain some actual physical silver in your possession. Not a bad idea if you like to pay attention to cyber prophecies, because that could be the counterweight, the counterbalance that sort of sees you through what could otherwise be an extremely traumatic period of time. And that's how silver relates to the paranormal world. It's because the people that control a lot of this technology have been able to manipulate it for all of this time period. And by doing that, they've gotten away with a lot of other stuff. All about to come to a bitter end for them, I'm afraid. It looks like the universe has a big shock coming for these people as well. So yeah, not a bad idea to sort of take stock of where we are in the cyber prophecies, to sort of brace ourselves for what's coming, and and to mentally, physically, spiritually prepare yourself. Like I say, this is a bug in kind of a situation, not a bug out. It's not like you're going to be packing the truck and heading for the hills with your shotgun, which, by the way, is a really bad idea in any situation. Trust me, everybody that thinks about bugging out has that exact same plan in mind. They're all going to wind up in the same place shooting each other. It's amazing. So bugging out is probably never a good idea unless you suspect that the place you're bugging in at is going to be destroyed in some fashion. Let's just face it. But moving on to tonight's Cryptid Corner, very interesting report I got. I've been perusing it. It's unusual in that it kind of combines a scientific mechanism with 4 various cryptids that we never would suspect would share this relationship, but it turns out that a report has been compiled by some very smart people who discovered that there's 4 areas around the world that have like major aqueducts, these just gigantic underground rivers, right? And at the same time, they have vast cavernous cave systems. And it turns out that all 4 of these locations around the world are famous cryptid hotspots. All 4 locations, because of the unusual underground makeup of the topography in these areas, they're all highly electric, and they all exude electromagnetic frequencies, and they do so in a weird sort of grid pattern in all 4 locations. And those locations are interesting because one is the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. And it's in the Pine Barrens, of course, that we have the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil's one of those cryptid animals that I have often wondered would fit better into the category of a interdimensional cryptid, or is it a one-off cryptid animal that lived and will or has died at some point? And your only other option is a breeding species, but since nobody's ever seen more than one of them, it sort of fits into this paranormal realm of one of those two. It either came about through some paranormal occurrence, lived its life and died, or this is an interdimensional being of some kind that's seen from time to time. But what's interesting is that it's in this area that in the Pine Barrens is where this cryptid is seen, and you have 3 other locations that are famous for cryptids that have the exact same underground thing taking place. Another location would be in West Virginia with the Flatwoods Monster. And the Flatwoods Monster is very interesting because the eyewitnesses who saw the creature described it as being part animal and part mechanical, and that it had this weird mechanical odor about it, which is very strange, in an area where there were reported UFO flaps taking place. And when you plot the sightings of the monster, it turns out that the sightings fall directly upon this electromagnetic grid that is naturally produced by the underground aquifers and tunnels that are there. The same thing, if you plot sightings of the Jersey Devil, the same thing is discovered. Then you can go all the way across the ocean to Congo, the Republic of Congo, and you have a cryptid animal named Mokele Mbembe, which I highly suspect is still alive and still roaming the jungles of the Congo. There are indications, like modern-day sightings of this creature, and there are sightings going way back into the 1960s from, I would call that modern-day sightings, of a creature that, Mokele Mbembe, the name means he who stops the flow of rivers. And by all visual descriptions that have been given to us by witnesses, it looks like this thing is a surviving brontosaurus of some kind or plesiosaur of some kind, as described as having a small head, a very long neck that goes to a very large body with huge 3-foot wide tracks. And it's said that when it crosses a river or a stream in the Congo, it's so wide that it stops the flow of the river. That's how it got its name. Well, it turns out that in the Congo, you have the exact same thing taking place. An extremely rare underground aquifer system tied to a extensive cave system that runs throughout, and very strange electromagnetic qualities taking place. And again, when you plot the sightings of Mokele Mbembe, strangely enough, it turns out that it shows up on this grid pattern. Then take into account eastern Oklahoma, my native Oklahoma, which would be the 4th location. And here you have, again, vast underground aquifers that are tied to vast cave systems. And there you have the Oklahoma Bigfoot, or the Adair monster, sometimes they like to refer to it as. It's interesting because you have normal sighting reports of Bigfoot in Oklahoma, but then you also have sightings of the so-called Adair monster, which is described like a Bigfoot, but with an elongated dog-like snout. People in that area, I suppose, don't know what a dogman is or have never called it a dogman, but it's known as the Adair monster. And here again, when you plot the sightings, it shows up on this electromagnetic grid pattern. What are the odds that 4 separate cryptid animals with no other known connections all are located in areas that have this extremely rare, natural makeup, and when the sightings are plotted, they all seem to be following grid lines that are naturally produced by that underground topography. Very, very strange. And, that brings me to the difference between a dogman, a werewolf, a skinwalker witch, and a shapeshifter. Something which is not discussed a lot, but I can tell you that, first of all, the one that is not like the other 3 is the skinwalker, because a skinwalker is a witch from the Navajo nation, and they practice a form of black witchcraft, really the blackest of the black. It's known that to be admitted into a coven of skinwalker witches, one has to do something like murder a family member in order to gain entry, and then they hold that crime over your head so that you never leave the group or betray the secrets of how they do what they do. And it's an ancient lineage of extremely powerful witches who, it appears, have gained, by paranormal means, through the practice of magic, the ability to actually take the form of other animals, among other powers. Very strange and incredibly powerful powers. So, and that differs from a dogman because it's believed by researchers, and you can consult my book, Dogman Legend Meets Science, that's available on Amazon. But most researchers and eyewitnesses, when they see a dogman, believe that this is a creature that stays in that form all the time. It's not shifting from form to form. This is some kind of apparently either being produced in a laboratory in numbers, or it's a breeding species of some kind out there in the dark wildernesses of the world. I mean, they are reported as far afield as Australia and places like that, even though, ground zero is North America, and particularly the northern states of North America, like Michigan. So, and there's lots of indications that there's an alien connection to the Dogman mystery. One of those indications comes from a remote viewer that contacted the magnificent Linda Godfrey, who broke the Beast of Bray Road story and really introduced the modern Dogman mystery to America. This remote viewer contacted her once upon a time from the government, claimed that he was in the CIA, still worked for the CIA, was a remote viewer for the CIA, and that he had been given a blind target of dogmen, and that there was some kind of alien connection there, that these things were produced by a non-human intelligence at some point in the distant past for an unknown reason, but that they appeared to be waiting for something. Interesting. He also stated that they possessed a type of alien technology in the form of these little orbs, these little spheres that they carry. And they can activate these spheres and they open up a portal and they can literally jump from location to location. She was able to verify his credentials. I knew Linda Godfrey personally. I know she wouldn't lie about it, and she even wrote about it in one of her books. Fascinating. Then you jump over to the farmer who owns the field adjacent to Bray Road itself, where the Beast of Bray Road has been cited as probably the most famous dogman there is. And he claims to have sighted the beast a number of times, to the point where he also started having cattle mutilations. He kind of blamed it on the beast. He planted cameras all through the field, and then put out a fresh deer carcass to bait it. And what he got on his camera was amazing. A mist formed in the middle of the field that the cameras were in. It sort of floated over the deer carcass, and when the mist dissipated, the deer carcass was gone. At the same period of time that he had these cameras out in his field, he recorded nonstop UFO activity, and this was at the same period of time that he came across what are believed to be, the absolute original, authentic dogman prints really ever taken or discovered, the Bray Road footprints. And these are footprints that have 5 toes, but they have 7 pads. A genetic anomaly not found in any canine species. Very, very strange stuff. And then you have the werewolf, and it's believed that the werewolf is actually a genetic anomaly that takes place within certain bloodlines, most of them going back to Northern European bloodlines. And there have been real werewolf cases even tracked into North America from Northern European immigrants that actually came from the old world and were carrying what apparently is some sort of mutation, genetic mutation of some kind, whereby they're able to spontaneously transform into a wolf-like creature. It's said that they're unable to control that, and I think that that's a fascinating part of the werewolf mystery. And then you have the regular, I call them regular, just your average, everyday shapeshifter. I tell people, take a look at a creature in the ocean called the mimic octopus. Here is a creature that is able to mimic other animals perfectly. It takes their shape, it takes their color, it takes their behavior patterns, and it uses all of that in its own survival mode, its hunting patterns and its survival mode. And I would argue that what we have on dry land here, which has been filmed now a few times, is an animal very much like the mimic octopus that is existing in the wilderness areas of North America. I do have a copy of that on my YouTube channel of some people that have filmed one of these that apparently is, cloaked. Which is fascinating to me. But what's really fascinating is that Dr. Bruce Maccabee's wife, the famous ufologist, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, who's now passed from us, and it was probably the best photo analyst of UFOs ever back in the day. His wife was hunting on their property, and she looks over and she sees in the tree next to her a shimmering silhouette of a being there that is very much like what was recorded by these other people. And she took a a photograph of it, and that photograph is out there online. And it's weird because Bruce Maccabee was an optic engineer, and he examined it, and he said whatever it was had some sort of weird ability to bend light rays around it. So that's the kind of animal I'm talking about when we talk about shapeshifters, and there's every indication that they are there and they are in the wilderness. Do they take people, or are they predators of some kind? That's unknown, really, at this time. So, boy, that hour went fast, and that's the way it goes. And in paranormal land, when you jump down one of these rabbit holes and just see where it leads you. So, but stick with us next hour on Vixen's Vault. I'll be filling in for the talented and amazing Nancy Planeta, and we'll continue the conversation on another weird topic. I'll see you over there.